Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about Lies of P, a game that burst onto the scene like a rogue puppet, snagging Game of the Year nominations and charming its way into the hearts of Souls-like veterans and newcomers alike. In a world brimming with Souls-likes, Lies of P not only stands tall, but carves out its own unique identity. It's been a massive success since its release, and for good reason. So what makes Lies of P so special? Let's start with what I really like about the base game. First off, the visuals. Lies of P is, without a doubt, one of the most visually striking Souls-like games out there right now. The aesthetic of Krat is breathtaking, blending intricate Victorian-era machinery with the elegant, ornate architectural styles popular during the Belle Époque period in European history. The result is a city that feels both technologically advanced and steeped in decaying Gothic beauty. And the character designs are incredibly detailed, from the intricate gears of enemy puppets to the finely tailored clothes of the human survivors. And speaking of Krat, the world building and storytelling are some of the best that this genre has to offer. They take the classic tale of Pinocchio and twist it into this dark, gritty, and surprisingly emotional narrative. Instead of a wooden puppet wanting to be a real boy, you play as P, a mechanical puppet trying to become human in a city ravaged by a puppet frenzy, where automatons have turned hostile against their creators. Every puppet, every character, every fragmented note you find tells you a piece of this tragic and compelling story, often requiring you to choose between telling a truth or a lie, which impacts the game's ending. It's truly well done. Now for all you Bloodborne fans out there, and you know who you are, you're gonna feel right at home. The Bloodborne influences here are not just welcome, they're celebrated. From the aggressive combat that rewards pushing forward with that fantastic rally mechanic, to the intricate, interconnected world design, Lies of P wears its inspirations proudly, but never feels like a mere copy. The rally mechanic in Lies of P is a core combat feature where after attempting to parry and missing or blocking, the damage that you take, that portion of your health bar, turns red. If you quickly retaliate and hit an enemy within a short time frame, you can recover that lost health. This actively encourages aggressive play, much like Bloodborne's similar system, pushing players to stay on the offensive rather than retreat. The level design itself is also top-notch. You'll find yourself constantly discovering clever shortcuts that loop back to earlier areas. These shortcuts not only save time, but also create a sense of cohesion within the world, making it feel like a truly interconnected place. And there are so many hidden secrets tucked away in every corner, from optional mini-bosses to unique items and lore entries. Exploration genuinely feels rewarding. As for the combat, it's tight, it's responsive, and for the most part, it feels incredibly fair. You feel every hit, every dodge, every perfectly timed block. This perfect guard, or perfect parry, is a crucial defensive mechanic where if you block an enemy attack with precise timing just before it lands, you can negate all damage and even stagger the enemy, breaking their weapon and opening them up for a powerful counterattack. It's a dance of death, and when you nail it, it feels incredible. Lies of P also boasts a lineup of truly memorable bosses. Each one is a spectacle, a challenge, and often a truly satisfying triumph to overcome. Even the ones that made me want to pull my hair out, I still remember vividly. These boss battles often have multiple phases, demanding that players learn complex attack patterns and exploit weaknesses, making each victory feel earned. I also need to talk about the music in Lies of P. The score for this game is absolutely fantastic, but what really sets it apart are the records that you can find throughout the world and throughout the story. These collectible records can be played on a gramophone back at Hotel Krat, your home base, offering beautiful, calming musical pieces that provide a much-needed moment of respite amidst the chaos and further enrich the game's atmosphere.
Close your eyes, come to me. Feel alright. Just dance with me all through the night. Turn it up. Close close to you, I feel good, 'cause I just know feeling of you. Give it to me, baby.
But arguably the coolest innovation that comes out of Lies of P is its weapon combination system. Instead of just finding complete weapons, you find weapons that can be broken into separate blades and handles, and then you can mix and match and combine them freely. Each blade determines the weapon's damage, scaling, and specific attack animations, while each handle dictates the weapon's movesets, be it light or heavy, weapon type, like sword, blunt, or piercing, and provides a unique fable art. Fable arts are special, powerful abilities tied to a weapon's handle, consuming fable slots, the game's equivalent of mana, to unleash devastating attacks, defensive maneuvers, or temporary buffs. Being able to mix and match these components to create your own unique moveset and fable arts is a genuinely fun and engaging system that encourages experimentation. Now, as much as I love Lies of P, no game is perfect, and there are a few areas where I think the base game could definitely improve. My biggest bummer, and I think many of you will agree, is the complete lack of co-op or any kind of multiplayer. For a game that borrows so much from the Souls formula, which often features cooperative play to tackle difficult bosses or some form of PvP combat, having no way to summon a friend for a tough boss or engage in that PvP just feels like a missed opportunity. This is particularly noticeable given how challenging some of the boss encounters can be. The game does provide some NPC summons that can help you on certain boss fights, but we all know it's a lot more enjoyable to do it with an actual person than an NPC. Also, the difficulty curve towards the end of the game gets a little steep. The final levels can feel like a bit of a slog, with relentless enemy encounters and some truly brutal boss fights. It felt like a significant spike compared to the earlier parts of the game. And while I appreciate the emphasis on parrying, the perfect guard mechanic just never felt quite right to me, never felt quite tight enough. There were many times where I felt like I nailed the timing, only to still take damage or not trigger the perfect guard effect. This lack of consistency can be incredibly frustrating when precise parries are often the most effective or sometimes only way to deal with certain attacks. And speaking of taking damage, poise is almost non-existent in this game when it comes to the player. Poise refers to the character's ability to resist being staggered or interrupted by enemy attacks. In Lies of P, even basic enemies can often interrupt your attacks or stun lock you into a combo, which can lead to some incredibly frustrating deaths as you're unable to retaliate or escape. However, staggering some of the enemies and bosses by breaking their guard through repeated perfect parries or sustained damage can feel like an insurmountable task, especially if your parries aren't consistent. And my final gripe with the base game's difficulty comes down to a trend I'm seeing more and more in Souls-like games. Bosses inflating their difficulty with ridiculously long wind-up animations that are hard to read. These are often delayed attacks where the boss holds their pose for an unnatural amount of time before striking, making it incredibly difficult to judge the correct timing for a dodge or parry. I understand why the developers are doing it, as it's an effective way of making the fight more challenging, but I don't enjoy it. It's a personal pet peeve of mine, and I hope we see less of this trend as time goes on. Now I want to talk about how the developers at NeoWiz have been listening to the community. The recent update that came with the Overture expansion brought some significant and much appreciated changes to the game. First, let's talk about difficulty settings. Lies of P now has 3 of them, with the hardest being the original difficulty of the game, and the 2 new options are varying degrees of easier. This is something I'm genuinely torn on. On one hand, I do appreciate wanting a wider audience to be able to engage with and enjoy the game. More people experiencing this fantastic world is always a good thing. But I also recognize that the trial and error, the experimentation, and the community conversations about the best ways to break the game are core elements of the Souls-like experience. That sense of hard-won achievement and shared struggle can get a little lost if you can just bump the game to easy. It's a delicate balance, and I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are in the comments below. Now this next one is a huge quality of life change, leveling up at the Stargazer. Stargazers are the game's equivalent of bonfires or checkpoints in other Souls-like games, allowing you to rest, replenish health, and manage your inventory. While I initially appreciated having to go back to Hotel Krat to level up, it did make the hub feel more like a home and reminded you to talk to NPCs. Being able to level up directly at any Stargazer is a much welcomed improvement. It streamlines the experience so much, especially when you're deep in a challenging area and you don't want to break your momentum. Another great quality of life tweak is being able to transfer Ergo from items directly into your spendable Ergo from any menu screen where it's used, like leveling up or at shops. Ergo is this game's version of Souls, and it's used for a variety of things like purchasing items, upgrading weapons, and leveling up. No more fumbling around through your inventory to consume individual Ergo fragments. It's a small change, but it makes a big difference in player convenience. And speaking of small but impactful changes, the Overture update brought a whole host of gameplay quality of life tweaks, including improved sprint animation, making movement feel smoother and more responsive, clearer hitboxes on certain attacks, reducing instances where you feel like you were hit unfairly, and rebalance specific enemy encounters, adjusting the difficulty of certain enemies or mini-bosses to make them more fair or less tedious. These additions really show that NeoWiz is committed to refining the player experience, and that's something that I always appreciate from a developer. So with the base game refined, it was time for the Overture expansion. And let me tell you, it did not disappoint. Most of the levels in the expansion are incredibly interesting. Exploring a rundown puppet-infested zoo was an absolute highlight. It was genuinely creepy and visually distinct, offering unique environmental challenges and enemy types. While some of the middle sections of the game felt a little like generic underground labs, the overall level design was strong, maintaining the interconnectedness and secret pathways we loved in the base game. But beyond the environments, Overture also told a truly memorable story, delving deeper into characters that were only hinted at or mentioned in the base game. It was incredibly fun being able to go back in time and see them in the flesh, and interact with them. The additional lore and information about the world of Krat and its inhabitants were masterfully woven in, adding so much rich context to the events of the base game. It genuinely deepened my appreciation for the entire narrative, answering some lingering questions while raising new intriguing ones. The enemy designs continue to be a standout. NeoWiz just has a knack for creating these unsettling, grotesque, and often beautiful mechanical horrors. Every new enemy felt fresh and presented a unique challenge, requiring new strategies to overcome. The new weapons introduced in the expansion are also really cool. For this playthrough, I was playing as a technique build, so I had an absolute blast with the bow, which provided a fantastic long-range option, allowing me to chip away at enemies from a distance or initiate encounters strategically. I also really loved those aggressive Wolverine-like claws. They were incredibly satisfying for up-close combat, offering rapid, devastating attacks. And these were just a couple of the new weapons introduced that added new dimensions to the combat, catering to different playstyles and offering fresh ways to approach encounters. Most of the bosses in the Overture expansion were incredibly fun, and they all had truly great designs. They were challenging but fair, and each felt like a significant accomplishment to overcome, testing your skills without feeling cheap. And the last thing I want to mention here is that the length of the expansion also felt substantial, but not too long. It offered a good chunk of new content, including several new areas, enemies, and bosses, without overstaying its welcome or feeling repetitive. My only major complaint is with the final boss of the expansion. I'm not going to show it here for spoiler reasons, but in my opinion, it felt significantly more difficult compared to the rest of the content in Overture. Certain moves and combos are brutally punishing and can kill you instantly. This meant that while other bosses in the DLC felt like a fair challenge, this one often felt like it relied on cheap shots or overly aggressive attack patterns that were too hard to consistently react to. I appreciate that DLC for Souls-like games is usually where the toughest challenges live, but this one just felt inconsistent with the rest of the difficulty curve in Overture. It was a bit of a wall, and honestly, a little frustrating. So what's the verdict on Lies of P and its Overture expansion? Lies of P is an absolute triumph. It takes the beloved Souls-like formula, infuses it with a dark, compelling narrative, and wraps it all in a stunning visual package. The base game is already a strong contender for one of the best Souls-likes out there, and the Overture update only served to refine and improve an already excellent experience, addressing key player feedback and enhancing quality of life. The Overture expansion, despite a slightly uneven final boss, delivers more of what we love: fantastic level design, memorable enemies, and challenging, engaging combat. It truly feels like a substantial addition to the world of Krat, deepening the lore and providing a fresh set of challenges. If you haven't played Lies of P yet, and you have even a passing interest in Souls-like games, you owe it to yourself to pick this one up. It's a brutal, beautiful, and deeply rewarding experience that will stick with you long after the credits roll. But what are your thoughts on Lies of P? Did the Overture expansion live up to your expectations? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more gaming content. Until next time, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.